We are done with acute, let's focus about chronic. You have chronic inflammation of paranasal sinuses that persist for at least 12 weeks. To have your diagnosis causes different organisms, so Staph aureus and Staph epidermis, Pseudomonas, cystic fibrosis, granulomatosis with polyangiitis, other gram-negative roots, anaerobes and fungi. In chronic rhinosinusitis, you don't see the famous three bacteria. The triad, you remember those three bacteria of acute rhinosinusitis? We have strep pneumo, non-typable Haemophilus influenzae, and Moraxella catarrhalis. Now we come to clinical picture of chronic rhinosinusitis. We have two C's, two H's and three pains and loss of two sensations. Then we have signs, two C's, that is congestion and cough. And then we have two H's, hoarseness and halitosis. Hoarseness is when your voice is hoarse. Halitosis is bad breath. Three pains: pain in your nose, dental pain, head pain which is doing as headache, plus two sensations: taste sensation and smell sensation. Smell sensation, loss of smell sensations called anosmia, and then sign, pressure, palpation on percussion or of the sinus. Now, associations of chronic sinusitis. Nasal polyps, absolutely. Chronic inflammation. Cystic fibrosis, cystic fibrosis. Thick secretion, chronic inflammation, chronic sinusitis leading to development of nasal polyps. Usually bilateral. Asthma in 50% of patients without nasal polyps and 80% of patients with nasal polyps. Which sinuses are most commonly involved in chronic rhinosinusitis? In this order: antiarrhythmic maxillary posterior, ethmoidal, sphenoid and frontal sinuses. Now, how to diagnose chronic rhinosinusitis? It's a clinical diagnosis through the history and the physical exam. It's the tenderness or percussion. When you percuss those sinuses, it hurts. If symptoms persist, you can do an X-ray. Please order a sinus view. CT scan, also a sinus view. What a view is called a sinus CT, which is of course better than the X-ray. Direct visualization by speculum exam or even endoscopy. Radiographic evaluation. The two modalities most commonly used include the plain radiograph and CT scan. Plain radiography does not adequately represent the individual ethmoid air cells. The extent of mucosal thickening in chronic sinusitis or visualization of the osteomeatal complex. Magnetic resonance imaging can be considered for evaluation of suspected tumors, but it not recommended for acute sinusitis because it does not distinguish air from bone. For these reasons, CT scanning of the sinuses is the imaging procedure of choice. In many centers, the cost is similar to that of plain radiographs because of the availability of limited coronal views, usually comprising approximately 6 coronal views of the maxillary, ethmoid, sphenoid, and frontal sinuses that are optimally sufficient for ruling out sinusitis. More detailed coronal slices are useful for viewing the osteomeatal complex and for surgical mapping. Transillumination, a common practice before plain radiographs and CT scans were widely available. Transillumination is of limited use and achieves a high rate of error. Ultrasonography. Ultrasonography has not been proved accurate enough to substitute for a radiographic evaluation. However, it may be considered to confirm sinusitis in pregnant women, for whom radiographic studies could pose a risk. Nasal smear. By examining the cellular contents of nasal secretions, one might find polymorphonuclear cells and bacteria in sinusitis. In a viral infection, these would not be found, and in allergic disease, one would expect to find eosinophils. Sinus puncture. The most accurate way to determine the causative organism in sinusitis is a sinus puncture. After anesthetization of the puncture site, usually in the canine fossa or inferior meatus, the contents of the maxillary sinus are aspirated under sterile technique, and bacterial cultures are performed to identify the organism. Culture specimens obtained from nasal swabs correlate poorly with sinus pathogens found by puncture because of contamination of the swab with normal nasal flora. However, because sinus puncture is an invasive procedure, it is not routinely performed. More recently, studies have shown a close correlation between organisms found by sinus puncture and by endoscopically guided aspiration of the sinus cavities through the middle meatus. Although this needs to be done by an otolaryngologist trained in the procedure, it may be necessary for defining the pathogenic organisms when standard therapy has failed or in an immunocompromised patient who is at risk for sequel of untreated sinusitis, such as orbital or central nervous system complications. Now we are talking about the treatment of the acute rhinosinusitis. First, watching weight. While most of them are caused by viruses, you remember which virus? Rhinovirus. If they persist, they are probably a secondary bacterial infection. Alright, so now NSAIDs, steroids, nasal steroids, nasal irrigation, decongestant nasal spray, antihistamine, and then if symptoms persist and it didn't improve at the antibiotics, even 7 days after the introduction of antibiotics, if the patient doesn't improve, you will switch the antibiotic into the other end. Well, you wait another 7 days and then you switch another 7 days. If the patient doesn't improve, you switch. What is the famous or the gold standard in treatment of acute rhinosinusitis? Amoxicillin clavulanate. Don't ever forget that. If there's I need you to remember 3 facts from this video. Number 1, acute rhinosinusitis is mostly caused by a virus called rhinovirus, and its bacteria, 3 famous bacteria: Strep pneumo, Haemophilus influenza, and Moraxella catarrhalis. The second fact, spread of infection to your ear otitis media, to your cavernous sinus, to everywhere in even periorbital cellulitis. And number 3, the drug of choice is amoxicillin clavulanate. Why do we add clavulanate? It's a beta lactamase inhibitor. Because amoxicillin is beta lactamase sensitive, we have to add this clavulanate, protect the amoxicillin from beta lactamase secreted by the nasty bacteria to try to resist you, called resistance. If the patient is allergic to penicillin, the patient is going to be allergic to amoxicillin, called common sense trimaclorides, fluoroquinolones, or tetracycline. Now, treatment of acute sinusitis, as we have seen, antibiotics such as amoxicillin for 2 weeks have been the recommended first-line treatment of uncomplicated acute sinusitis. The antibiotic of choice must cover Strep pneumo, Haemophilus influenza, and Mycorrhiza catarrhalis, because rare intracranial and orbital complications of acute bacterial sinusitis are caused by Strep pneumo, most commonly in the immunocompromised host. Adequate coverage for this organism is important. Amoxicillin clavulanate, as we have discussed earlier. Augmentin is also an appropriate first line treatment of uncomplicated acute sinusitis. The addition of clavulanate, a beta-lactamase inhibitor, provides better coverage for Haemophilus influenzae and Mycorrhiza catarrhalis. Because of Strep pneumoniae resistance, higher doses of amoxicillin, that is 90 mg per kg per day to a maximum of 2 gram per day, should be considered. These higher doses are effective against Strep pneumoniae because resistance is related to alteration in penicillin binding proteins, a mechanism distinct from the beta-lactamase enzymatic inactivation of Haemophilus influenzae and Mycorrhiza catarrhalis. Other options include cephalosporins such as cefpodoxim, Proxetil, Ventin, and ceforaxim, Ceftin. In patients allergic to beta-lactams, trimethoprim, sulfamethoxazole, Bactrim, clarithromycin, Biaxin, and azithromycin, Zithromax may be prescribed but might not be adequate coverage for Haemophilus influenza or resistant strep pneumo. Penicillin, erythromycin, Suprex, and first generation cephalosporins such as Cefalexin, Keflex, Keftab are not recommended for treating acute sinusitis because of inadequate antimicrobial coverage of the major organisms. If treatment with one of these first-line agents has not shown a clinical response within 72 hours of initial therapy, more broad-spectrum antibiotics should be considered, as I told you. These include the fluoroquinolones, gatifloxacin, Tequin, moxifloxacin, Avalox, and levofloxacin, Levaquin, especially if amoxicillin, clavulanate, cefpodoxim, Proxetil, and ceforaxim were previously prescribed. Treatment of chronic sinusitis. Antibiotic therapy for chronic sinusitis is controversial and may be most appropriate for acute exacerbation of chronic sinusitis. Medical therapy should include both a broad-spectrum antibiotic and a topical intranasal steroid to address the strong inflammatory component of this disease. Antibiotic therapy might need to be continued for 4 to 6 weeks. The antibiotic of choice include the agents that cover organisms causing acute sinusitis but also cover Staphylococcus species and anaerobes. These include amoxicillin clavulanate, cefpodoxim Proxetil, ceforaxim, gatifloxacin, moxifloxacin, and levofloxacin. Currently used topical intranasal steroids such as fluticasone, Flonase, mometasone, Nasonex, budesonide, Rhinocort AQ, and triamcinolone Nasacort AQ have a favorable safety profile and indications for the pediatric age group. A short course of oral steroids may be used for extensive mucosal thickening and congestion or nasal polyps. Adjunctive therapy. To temporarily alleviate the drainage and congestion associated with sinusitis, decongestant nasal sprays, oxymetazoline, Ephrin, and phenylephrine hydrochloride neosynephrine may be used for 3 to 5 days. Long-term use of topical decongestants can cause rhinitis medicamentosa, which is rebound congestion caused by vasodilation and inflammation. Oral decongestant pseudoephedrine may be reasonable alternative if the patient has no contraindication such as hypertension. Mucolytic agents guaifenesin can help to decrease the viscosity of the mucus for better clearance and are often found in combination with decongestants. Some mucolytics are now available over the counter. Saline spray or irrigation can help clear secretions. Topical corticosteroids are not indicated for acute sinusitis but may be helpful for chronic sinusitis, nasal polyps, and allergic and non-allergic rhinitis. Antihistamines are not indicated for sinusitis but may be helpful for underlying allergic rhinitis. Surgery. If medical therapy fails or if complications are suspected, an otolaryngology consultation is warranted. This may begin with a nasal endoscopy for better visualization of nasal cavity and osteomeatal complex. The otolaryngologist can also perform endoscopically guided sinus culture if surgical therapy is being contemplated. Newer techniques of functional endoscopic sinus surgery are performed to clear sinuses of chronic infection, inflammation, and polyps. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you like it.